A$AP Rocky is an artist I've had a very difficult relationship with in the past. Don't particularly think he's got any album that's great or even close to great. I would argue that he doesn't even have any good albums, to be honest, which I know a lot of people will disagree with, but it's one of those things I don't really understand why, because there are plenty of artists in the hip hop genre this decade that have given us a lot to offer in terms of content and in terms of beats and production. And yeah, A$AP Rocky still continues to be pretty popular for releasing music that is generally quite mediocre. I've just never really got with A$AP Rocky, to be honest, aside from plenty of singles that he's put out that are great. I liked Fucking Problems, Goldie, his collaborations with A$AP Ferg are usually good. His contribution to A$AP Mob is below par. I think his last album was pretty average across the board, even though it saw some decent critical acclaim. But I think what separates him from like trap rappers or this generation's new wave of rappers is that he seems to flow a little bit more than the average weak MC on the mic, yet he doesn't always really have that much to say. So I do separate him from today's new school, and yet he doesn't really live up to that expectation, to be honest. And this new album Testing is once again me just wondering what he's trying to go for, because this is a big fail. Not a complete fail, but I find much of the music on this album to be really bad. And it's not even the music. I think that sometimes some of the beats are pretty nice to listen to, but A$AP Rocky over this production, oof. No, not his style at all. First of all, I do want to point out that I believe that there is a bit of a Frank Ocean Blonde influence on this album. In fact, quite a big influence, to be honest. I think some of these low-key, softer, really beautifully crafted instrumentals certainly seem more R&B influenced than hip-hop influenced, and that is definitely for sure. But not only that, they just have this atmosphere that Frank Ocean was able to craft on Blonde, and even through the instrumental album Endless too. And I think it's kind of cool to see that influence spread out pretty far, because as much as people do love Frank Ocean's Blonde, and as popular as it is, so far since the album's come out, I haven't quite seen anyone else try to replicate that sound. I don't know if it's because they just respect that album too much, that they don't feel as though that they can go for that style of music in the same way a Frank Ocean can, but you would still think more artists out there would try and copy it or rehash it in some kind of way. And I think Testing is an album that sees A$AP Rocky trying to go for a vibe similar to it. The tracks like Call Drops, a little bit, Changes, Kids Turned Out Fine, those tracks specifically speak out to me as Frank Ocean's Blonde. But maybe the whole of the album isn't quite in the same vein, but I think there are elements to his vocals as well, the effects he put on his vocals at times that totally remind me of it. That's obviously not the whole album. Anyway, I'm not just going to stand here and say that this album's a Blonde ripoff, because that's not true. It's just something I wasn't expecting with this album, and then when we got that, I was quite surprised, and it was something I thought was interesting about the album. One of the few things that was interesting about this album. Now, A$AP Rocky on this album, I think, is the weakest element. Absolutely. I think the way he's rapping and his voice, the sound of his voice sounds... I just can't describe it on some of these tracks. Kids Turned Out Fine. He just sounds weird. Like, I don't get what it is. He sounds completely different to what he used to sound. Of course, when he first started off, he had a very cloud rap influence, so his voice was a little washed out a little bit. But as he's grown, he's come out into his own style. But on this album, he just sounds completely different. Well, listen to the first track. I mean, this beat is a bit messy, to be honest. It's a bit bass driven, and he mentions that in the song. It's a bit over bloated. I don't think it connects well at all. But him over this instrumental, I don't know what it is about his voice, but he just sounds like he doesn't know what he's going for. He's trying to be a bit different in the way he's rapping and stuff. I just really don't get it. I think his embrace of the fashion world has completely hindered his rapping abilities, because it's like he's focusing more on that, and then this is just a side project for him. Like, he's no longer a rapper, he's more of a fashion guy, and this is just what he does on the weekends. Because to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if I went into this album not knowing who it was, and I came out of it thinking it was just a random SoundCloud rapper who has nothing interesting about them. They're very amateur, they're very much in the early days of their careers, which is not A$AP Rocky at all, but this album certainly sounds like it. Tracks like Tony Tone, though, I think there is a decent flow in his rapping on this track, even if I think the beat overshadows him a bit too much. The beat is a bit too loud, so he gets drowned out a little bit, to the point where you don't really pay attention to what he's saying, and it's not really part of his thing anyway, because I'm sure if I was paying attention, there wouldn't be much content to take out of it, because he's just not that kind of rapper. The features don't exactly save A$AP Rocky on this album. We have French Montana, you know, this guy is a nothing rapper, literally nothing rapper. We've got Juicy J, I don't really think he adds much to his track either. Kodak Black on the song fucking Cold Drops. Oh boy, this track is horrendous. Like, it is really bad. Like, he cannot fit this vibe at all. Like, it's just so soft and quiet. There's just nothing to it. It may as well not even be a song. And then right at the end of the song, you know, the free Kodak thing. Really? Are we going to defend Kodak Black at this point? I'm sure there's been enough evidence against the guy to know that he's not a good person. The Moby sample is the only interesting part about the track A$AP Forever, mostly because that song actually is a pretty good song. So when you get to the last part of the track and that instrumental is playing, it's a lovely sound. It always has been. It's a real shame that Rocky just isn't on his A game at all on this track. He really wasted that good beat. And he has FKA Twigs on the track too. Fuck Sleep. I mean, what a waste of an FKA Twigs feature. The song doesn't even have a sexy vibe. You had FKA Twigs on your album and you didn't even give her the best beat that she sings over consistently. Come on, man. What are you doing? Wasting our time. And it turns out the best features come from Skepta and Frank Ocean. Frank Ocean has a nice end to the album on Purity, a pretty nice sounding song. Didn't really love it that much, so I just would have preferred it if it was Frank Ocean the whole way through. But Skepta, I think on the track he features on, is probably my favourite on the album. The only beat I can honestly say I remember to the point where I would go back to it and return to it, because it has a really catchy beat. A$AP Rocky is sounding good on this beat. Skepta comes in as well. Doesn't sound out of place, because sometimes I think grime rappers featuring with American artists in the hip hop genre can be a little iffy. Doesn't always go to plan or go to the best that it could have, but I think this is a good example of how it can work really well. Really quite impressed with this track actually. I think this is something that shows that grime can actually cross over to hip hop sounds in a really successful way. Yeah, I definitely would like more of this in the future, and to say it's the best song on the album out of 15, that's saying something. And plenty of these songs, A$AP Rocky just sounds boring as fuck. Bookshots, 100. Oh, man, he really is just the least interesting rapper around. Like, he really is. I mean, you get something from trap in the sense that there might be a catchy beat to it, but A$AP Rocky just kills the beats he's on. The momentum that they have dies off because he comes in on them and slows it all down. Yeah, I'm really just not impressed by any of this at all. Like, I think some of the tracks are genuinely terrible. And, 15 songs and I only pull away one that I could genuinely say I like is pretty bad. And the poor mixing that floods many of these songs, like especially Black Tux, White Collar, the opening track, like I mentioned already, Distorted Records, like, it sort of feels like he's trying to go for something a little bit avant-garde and a little bit out there and adventurous and weird, which could appeal to a certain type of crowd. I can see that. but I think it's a bit of a failed experiment. I would give him the slightest benefit of the doubt there, but if he isn't experimenting, then oh boy, yeah, he's really just making bad music, isn't he? Oh, yeah, I'm really not into this one. Not feeling it. I'm gonna go with an E. Think it's a bad album overall. Let me know your thoughts though if I'm wrong, and if you think that this actually has more to it than I say. I like one track, I will probably go back to it quite a bit, but other than that, got nothing. Comment and let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Tell me what I should review next and all that kind of stuff. Hope you enjoyed the review. Have a good day. Yeah. Have a good day.